Hello everyone, I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is a Dragonheir Silent Gods video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. In today's video, we're going to discuss about gear sets, gearing champions, because this has been a pretty requested topic from a lot of you guys. I'm constantly seeing it in the comments. And I want to just help you understand how to build your champions, why you should use the X gear set on the X champion, and what exactly you need to focus in terms of stats for different builds. So I'm going to share with you guys some examples that I have. I'm going to try to show you at least one example for each one of the sets, and we're kind of like going to discuss about what champions should go in that sort of a set, and make it a bit clear what all the stats do. So let me just quickly start by showing you a quick tip right here. So initially, when you're checking the champion skills, if you click on details, you will be able to see multipliers and everything else that will affect the champion's performance. Some of the champions deal damage based on attack, some of them deal damage based on defense, mostly of attack though, but you will see champions that will do derivative damage, enlightenment damage, how much enlightenment, how much attack, etc. And then the next tip that I quickly want to share with you before we move over into the main topic is, if you click right here on the stats, like this, they will bring these attributes on the screen for you. And this will explain you what which one of these stats actually do on your heroes. For example, the most asked question is, what does Enlightenment do? Affects the value of derivative damage, or becomes the coefficient of some skills directly. Increases the hero's derivative damage by 12.8% derivative damage. Additional damage generated by a specific skill gains an Enlightenment bonus but cannot trigger crit hits. Now, usually the champions that will require Enlightenment, guys, will be champions that deal damage based on Enlightenment and attack, of course, derivative damage that can be improved with Enlightenment, and there are not that many champions all around in game that can do it. Now, you have a lot of healers that can heal based on HP and Enlightenment, attack and Enlightenment. You have champions that can buff shield on your team, and the value of the shield increases more based on the HP plus the Enlightenment. So a lot of things like this can actually get improved by the Enlightenment. But I will show you a few different champions. Then there are a couple of different things. Attack interval, so attack speed. Attack speed means how often you are using your basic skill. Now, the Dauntless heroes, they are phenomenal at using their basic skills. They get increased attack speed, most of them, or they buff a lot with this specific buff, and they spray their basic skill a lot and deal a lot of damage like that. Most of their skills as well count as basic skills too, so they kind of like synergize better with passives or other things like that, So you want to have attack speed for some of those champions, but there are other champions that are not Dauntless that benefit out of it. We have some summoners that summon every time you're using your basic attack 5 times or something like that, or you're getting a shield every time the champion is using the basic attack, I don't know how many times. So when you see that basic attack, they need to use the basic attack very often. Giving them attack speed is actually very helpful. Skill haste. So think about skill haste almost like speed on your champions. So skill haste will actually determine how often will your champions use the battle skill and the ultimate skill. Now, you see the ultimate skill has an ultimate energy charging. Both of these skills have a cooldown. The cooldown will get decreased initially by, of course, applying scrolls to your heroes. And then you can add skill haste to the heroes, and they will use their skills more often than if they have no skill haste, for example. And the rest of them are pretty clear. Like, you just have the standards: HP, attack, defense. You have crit rate, crit damage, accuracy, resistance. No secret there, nothing too crazy. Just these 3 stats are very important for people to understand what exactly they do, So my Erich right here, guys, doesn't do damage based on Enlightenment, okay? So he basically is a classic champion that requires you to build him with attack, crit rate, crit damage if you want him to deal a lot of damage. Now, again, there are more niche builds with Flora and other things that you can do for your Vortex team. But just as a regular champion, looking at Erich, just a quick example, because we're going to go over a list of champions. He needs to have these stats in order to deal more damage. Now, of course, you gotta pair your champions right. Wild heroes with more wild heroes, so they synergize better. Frost with other Frost or support for the Frost heroes. Rally heroes with rally heroes, etc. You know how it goes. This is something that probably you've seen already. Now, when we're talking about gear sets, guys, there are not that many in the game, okay? And when we're talking about epics, okay, basically, it's nothing too crazy with them. They're pretty straightforward. 15% attack, 10% crit rate. You want that on damage dealers. On damage dealers that need just attack, crit rate, and crit damage. Not all the damage dealers need that. Some of them require Enlightnment because they do derivative damage or God knows what else they're doing that will enable you a different form of damage. But I'm going to give you a few examples. Then the other sets, either they give you attack speed or Enlightenment next to the 15% attack or skill haste. Once you move to the legendary version, they'll get upgraded version of it and you can make 3-piece sets. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you cannot make 4-piece sets in Dragonheir. At the moment, there are only 3-piece sets available, and hopefully in the future they will change that, make 4-piece sets. So if you're equipping 4 pieces of the same legendary set, you won't be getting the bonus twice from using 2-piece, okay? Just by getting, you're just gonna get the bonus for 3-piece, basically, you know? So, moving over to the legendary gear, because that's where it becomes more interesting, more important on how you're building your champions, to utilize the right sets on the right champions to maximize their full potential. And if you guys enjoy the content, make sure you smash a like, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps a lot. So we have the Executioner set. This is the equivalent of a Savage set when you're equipping 3 pieces. For whoever is not familiar with the Savage set, which is named like this in most of the games, it ignores defense, guys. So this is great on champions that will smack around waves, especially. So think about your Goblin team. Think about your Arena team. Think about tower defense teams or things where you need to smash your opponents. These work amazing on that. So I do have it equipped on quite a few different champions, but we're gonna get to that in just a few seconds. So how you may notice, you have 15% attack, 10% crit rate on 2-piece sets. So it's the exact same thing like the epic, but once you move to 3 pieces, that's when you're enabling the next thing. Then you have the Platinum chest, which will give you pretty much the same thing like the epic on 2-piece, but at 3-piece, when the wearer's ultimate skill is fully recharged, they gain 30% damage bonus for 10 seconds. So that's actually pretty cool as well because you are boosting your damage overall. Then moving over to the Gambler set, guys, this will give you attack and attack speed at 2 pieces, but at 3 pieces will actually enable you to deal enemy max HP damage or true damage up to 200% of your attack. So this is amazing against the Vortex, amazing against bosses because they have very high HP, and that's where it's really going to shine because you can bring out a lot of extra value from enemy max HP extra damage, okay? So keep that in mind. Think about things like War Master procs is something like that. So if you play Raid, you know what War Master proc is. I can't remember how many other games actually have something like that, but it's basically like some extra damage that is enabled by some 3 skill on your heroes or something like that, you know? So this is another interesting set. Then, of course, you have the Rat, and this gives you attack and skill haste. At 3 pieces, it gives you a healing when you're using basic skills. Now, funny enough, it's not one of the most powerful sets, I'll be honest with you. It's more common to use this on a 2-piece set just to get the extra skill haste on some of the heroes that you want them to move very fast, to use their skills very fast, and try to be faster than your opponent in Arena, for example. And moving over to the sets that come from different dungeons, we have 2 and 2 basically. So the Ancestral set, nothing special compared to the Epic when it's a 2-piece set, but when it becomes a 3-piece set, it becomes a damage reduction set for your entire team. So this is something that you might want to equip on tanky champions, like either your tank, either a support champion that's built very, very tanky, because what this set does basically takes 15% damage from your entire team and brings it over to the champion that wears this, and then that champion gains a 15% extra damage reduction on top of it. Now, these sets do not stack, so it's pointless to use multiple champions with this set in the same team, okay? You only want one of these per team, and mainly on your tank, honestly. So this is a great set. Then we have the Radiance set, and this gives you Enlightenment and HP. This is amazing for champions like Hexandra, even Catherine, champions that heal based on a Enlightenment and something else. Or we have Adolphus, for example. He gives me a shield based on HP and Enlightenment. So the more Enlightenment, the better, basically. And you see a 3-piece heals the hero by 20% max HP after the wearer unleashes their ultimate skill. So if you don't have healers in your team and you want your champions to still get a bit of a heal, this is a very viable set. Now, I do have it on some tanks that do not require Enlightenment whatsoever. And that's just being part of one of my strategies to try and get some healing on the champions that have no healing in their team, because some of the elements, they just don't have very good support unless you pull some of the best legendaries, and it's very hard to do Pillars of Trial. It's very hard to do the Fae, for example. So you gotta play around, you gotta basically be a bit creative with the sets. Then we have the Brotherhood set. This is one of the best sets to use on support that will use their skills very often, their ultimate skill, because initially as a 2-piece set doesn't do nothing else than the epic set that gives you accuracy and skill haste. But at 3-piece sets, after using the ultimate skill, this set will give you 15% increase attack on your entire team. So I'm using it on cleansers, I'm using it on champions that support my team in a way or another, even champions that land debuffs on the enemy. So support champions that just land debuffs, because I tend to have them with more skill haste than the others. So by the time my DPS champions, my damage dealers, get to use their ultimate skills, this champion will use his ultimate, and the Brotherhood set will activate and put increased attack on my entire team, and that will boost my damage significantly. 15% to be more specific, more or less, So this is a very, very solid set. And how you may notice, I have it equipped on quite a few different champions. Then we have the Holy Hunter set, and this is such a broken, busted set, but in a good way. So at 2-piece, nothing too crazy accuracy resistance. At 3-piece, this becomes a stun set, guys. But you need to deal damage in order for the stun to proc. So when the wearer deals damage to an enemy, there's a 20% chance of inflicting stun for 3 seconds. Derivative damage won't trigger stun. So I'm running this on Vortex, for example. Is amazing. Vortex covers the entire map, the entire area. So he has a much higher chance to stun pretty much everybody in the enemy team. Then, of course, you want to use it on champions that have great coverage on their AoEs. You want to use it on debuffers. That's going to be actually very, very beneficial for them, So now that we clarified the sets, guys, I do think that this video will be a bit longer, so hopefully we're not going to go too long on it. But for example, this is my average right here. He is built for the Vortex, okay? So as an idea, now I tend to change the artifact on him, and I tend to use the one that lands defense down, either the Crown of the Unclean, either the Witch's Remains. But basically, one thing that a lot of you guys probably did not know, and I'm gonna explain it to you right now. So Erich, on his skills, has multi-hits on the ultimate skill, right? So the artifacts tend to activate, most of them that land defense down, when you use the ultimate skill. So Erich summons 5 meteorites to strike the designated area. A lot of the champions will have multi-hits like this. So when you're trying to land the defense down with your artifacts, so this is an extra quick tip in here in the video, guys. The multi-hits will have a chance to proc the defense down, a 75% chance to proc with each one of the hits. So basically, if the first hit fails, the second one fails, the third one fails, up to the 5 hits, one of them is pretty much almost guaranteed that it will land with a 75% chance the defense down, and that will boost your damage a lot. But you do require accuracy for the artifact. So I sacrificed some of the damage on Erich just to get extra accuracy for my Vortex team. So this was extra tip. Total stats on my Erich, for example, you see I prioritize crit rate, crit damage, and attack on him, and the accuracy afterwards, because I want him to deal some damage. I have a Gambler set and a Broken Piece. How I mentioned, 4-piece sets don't exist on Legendary, just 3-piece sets. And this is how my Erich is built. Now, if I'm going to showcase to you a different champion build for the Vortex or bosses in general, Tunnel Nun. She is on a Gambler set as well, and a Broken Piece from the Platinum chest too. And total stats on her, 58k HP, 4.9k attack, 1.3k defense. So I prioritized high attack, 80% crit rate because that's how much she needs. She's a special champion. She only needs 80% because the passive gives her 20 already, and as much crit damage as possible after, you know. So I still don't know, I'll be honest with you, I still don't know how is the value in between high attack, high crit damage, which one works better, to what's the right balance. Okay, so this is something that I'll have to really look into. It is a lot of testing involved. It's not something that I'll notice from a day to another, you know. But definitely aim to get some crit damage on your champions as well, because is definitely important if you're going for a high crit rate, you know. So that's another champion built on Gambler, you know. If we're gonna move over to a different champion that's built on an Executioner set, and that's the one that ignores defense. So, for example, I have my Dane. He's amazing on waves, amazing on the Goblin, amazing in all sort of scenarios like this, because he has 2 AoE skills, guys, okay? So that's gonna be really, really helpful. Now, it doesn't mean that only double AoE skills should use this, no. If you use champions for Arena, if you use champions for the Goblin, champions that might farm the domains for you, champions that are meant to do a lot of damage to a lot of enemies, the Executioner set is the best option, hands down, okay? So this is how my Dane is built, an Executioner set and a Broken Piece. Now, total stats on him, he doesn't have the highest attack or the highest crit rate or the highest accuracy, to be honest, because he's a hybrid build. I do need accuracy for him as well, because he enables my Sigrid with his skill, you know. He puts decreased attack, he steals buffs from bosses, so all around he's great. I am using him on bosses too, but of course, he won't perform as good as a Tunnel Nun or even as average with that set, just to kind of like have an idea. 48k HP, 1.3k defense, 3.5k attack, 91 crit rate, 154 crit damage, 162 accuracy, 25 skill haste. So usually his skills are on 12 seconds and 20 seconds. So initial recharge time is 12, complete recharge is 20 seconds. That's when you have the hero at 0 skill haste. But right now, because I have 25 skill haste on him, let me show you how that works. It will show you right here. And it will show you everything that you have, you see? The interval between 2 basic attacks. The attack speed increases by 6% of the current hero. Okay, so that's what I have on mine. Then skill haste, I have a 5% reduction on the cooldown for all the skills, including the initial recharge. So for Arena, having very high skill haste to ensure that your crowd control champion, your debuffer, or even your nuker will go before the enemy is massive, guys, okay? So just wanted to kind of like touch another note on the skill haste to see. So 25%, 25 skill haste is roughly 5% from his skills, you know? And if we're moving over to the next set, this is something that's going to be a bit more niche. I build my Gerdress on the Rat set, guys, because I'm using him in the Pillars of Trials, and I don't have much healing there, okay? So next to the damage that he's dealing, next to everything else that the champion does, whenever he's using the basic skill, he's going to get a healing, okay? So that's going to be very, very important to help the champion sustain. Now, I'll be honest, this set on a 3-piece set is not very good, is not very powerful, and this is just something that I'm experimenting and very niche for my current situation in the game with the champions that I have. And I'll be honest, it's not a very wow set, okay? Something probably is the weakest set out of the 3. I'll be honest with you, you know, because it's very hard to find a proper use for this specific set. So if you're struggling to keep some of your champions alive, consider in using this set on them. So my Gerdress, for example, 49k HP, low attack, 86 crit rate, 135 crit damage, 217 accuracy. It does need a bit of survivability at the same time, and I would love more attack on him, I'll be honest, just so the healing would be even better, but it's still kind of like a work in progress, you know? If we're gonna move over to talk about champions that need Enlightenment now, and I'm gonna give you guys 2 different examples because I feel like they fit the right profile. So the very first one, Vikana, and this is not just for the legendary champion. Don't focus on the actual champions, rather focus on what the champions do. So Vikana, for example, has this passive. Whenever an enemy is inflicted with poison, the hero gains a stack of Enlightenment up permanently. So she benefits a lot from Enlightenment. Then you have the battle skill, fires 3 bolts each at a random enemy, dealing 150% attack poison damage with a chance of inflicting a poison stack. Now the poison deals 0.5% of the target's max HP. That's the damage. Not every poisoner requires Enlightenment. Some poisoners can work with different sets. Like I'm gonna talk about Sigrid in just a second. Then you have the ultimate skill on Vikana. Fires an arrow dealing 500 attack poison damage to enemies within range and marking them for 10 seconds. Each time the marked enemy is inflicted with poison, a toxic blast is triggered, dealing 105% attack derivative poison damage. So when you click right here, derivative damage can get boosted by Enlightenment, okay? How the Enlightenment was actually describing itself. So this champion requires very high Enlightenment, very high attack, very high accuracy. Poison champions are some of the hardest to build in the game because you need all these 3 stats to be at insane amount of stats to really get crazy damage. So this skill right here for other champions can be a passive as an idea. Of course, not poison damage. That's kind of like to describe the element rather than being something more significant. But when you're using champions in combination with Vikana that land a lot of poisons, Vikana will trigger this derivative damage, and that will boost the damage a lot, especially on Vortex and bosses, okay? So keep that in mind. Then if we are talking about a different champion that needs Enlightenment, I think it's him, if I'm not mistaken, yes. So Shelter. Basically, he has this passive. Basic attacks have a 30% chance of releasing Chain Lightning to deal 75% attack derivative lightning damage to enemies. Each lightning chain can bounce, blah, blah, blah. That's not important. But again, this passive deals derivative damage. So every time basic attacks are used, this champion has a 30% chance to proc it. Then he has the ultimate skill, which enhances all allies with lightning force, granting them Blessing of Thunder, which enhance their skills basically, gains a chance of dealing additional lightning damage with basic attacks. When launching basic attacks, all allies with Blessings of Thunders have a 30% chance of summoning a lightning strike on the enemy, dealing 95% attack derivative lightning damage. So again, Enlightenment will benefit this champion a lot. Now, unfortunately, it seems that I don't have any of them built at the moment. I'll be honest, I haven't built any of them with a 3-piece set except Vikana. She was actually built with a full Enlightenment set. So let me just check. You want to have Enlightenment as substats. You want to have attack as substats. So this weapon right there is a good one. Of course, it's not maxed at the moment. And you want to use Enlightenment chests, guys. So there we go. Unfortunately, it didn't roll me on attack, but we're going to use that. Then, of course, you want some sort of artifact that will give you more attack, more Enlightenment. And the Meditator's Pipe does that for me. She does need accuracy as well, so that's actually top notch for her. You want to get a rune that has Enlightenment as main and then attack percentage, so you get a lot of attack from it. And then here, probably, if it's a poisoner, it will require an accuracy. If it's a different champion, you will want to use attack instead. And try to get as much Enlightenment as possible as on substats, you know. So my Vikana has 337 Enlightenment, 3.6k attack, 162 accuracy. And if I'm using her in the Vortex, pretty much everything is low on her at the moment. So I need to find better gear with better substats, basically, you know, because this is just not cutting it off. And yeah, you roughly want to have 400-500 Enlightenment, as much attack as possible, and you need 200 plus accuracy if you want to land the poisons with her A2. So that's how derivative damage and Enlightenment synergize, guys. So it's very, very important to enhance the derivative damage. Of course, there are many other champions in the game that have some sort of different passives or skills that deal either damage based on attack and enlightenment. That's pretty clear, but you gotta make sure you click on details so you can see what each champion does, for example. And I talked about different poisoners because I've seen this as another mistake. Sigrid, for example, she's a poisoner, right? But she doesn't land poisons. Okay, so the main idea is she doesn't need to have enlightenment. She just needs something that deals a lot of damage. So I have an executioner set on her. I'm missing the artifact at the moment, but that's not the point. I tend to use the Crown of the Unclean in most of the dungeons. When I'm running Goblin or something else, I'm using the Volcanic Disc to get more attack on her, you know? But the whole idea is she needs to be built with crit rate, crit damage, and attack, guys. She's a typical nuker, a typical damage dealer, right? The skills are saying clear. Shoots 2 toxic arrows at enemy, each dealing 210% attack. So just because it says poison damage, it doesn't mean that she's dealing poisons, okay? She's not putting poisons. Poison is a debuff. The poison damage, frozen damage, or necrotic damage, or whatever they're calling them all, they're just to basically tell you what sort of element the champion is. And right here, the ultimate skill deals 820% attack poison damage. So no poisons in here. The debuffs are actually healing prohibition and attack penalty. Just so you guys kind of like get a better idea of what to expect. Now, if we're moving over to the next sets, guys, because we still have 4 different sets, I feel like I talked quite a bit about the damage ones. We have the tanks, okay? So let's quickly talk about the tanks. So if I'm going to talk about my Frorbart, I have him built on the set that will give me damage reduction, the Ancestral Protection, and this is great on him because you know what? He brings his own healing, he's getting extra defense, he's getting some HP as well, and that's what you want to get on a tank, 100%, you know? And you can use this on Garius, you can use this on most of the tanks. Pretty much on most of the tanks. It's the best set for every tank in the game, I'll be honest, right? And that's what you're prioritizing on stats. Defense, HP, you need accuracy for some of them don't require accuracy. Garius doesn't need accuracy, Frorbart needs accuracy for a attack down, you know? And of course, he's gonna do an amazing job like this. Now, when we're talking about the other 3-piece set that will either give us the Enlightenment and will give us the healing, the Enlightenment, how I mentioned, will not necessarily benefit your champion. So I have this on my Dalbam, and it's not because I need Enlightenment on the champion. I do not. How I mentioned, this is more of a niche build, but this 3-piece set, it allows him to build whenever he's using the ultimate skill. And I don't have much healing in my team, so I need to make sure he's getting some healing back and stays alive in the Pillars of Trials and other areas like this, you know. For Arena, I would definitely use the other set. Now, this set, at the same time, can be used on healers. So if we're gonna check quickly Catherine, for example, her skills are saying the following. The passive just gives you a shield. The battle skill gives you a 15% target's max HP, healing, and a 2,500 enlightenment. The more enlightenment, the more healing you're gonna get on your target, okay? So keep that in mind. It's great for these champions, and again, this will heal the champion too, helping her to stay alive even more, just in case if it's needed. That extra healing, you know? If you go to the ultimate skill, heals the allies by 10% of the target's max HP and 2,500% enlightenment. So 2,500% of my 209 enlightenment, which is very, very good. So as an idea, Hexandra does pretty much the same. Now I do have my Hexandra built differently. And you see on the battle skill, she needs attack and enlightenment in order to provide a better healing. On the ultimate skill, she doesn't need any of those, you know? So it's not a necessity to give her enlightenment just for the battle skill. I'm actually using her in my Ancient Battlefield team. She's kind of like the stun target. And I built her with resistance, 300 resistance, and I gave her some tankiness, a bit of skill haste, and she's just constantly using the skills to heal, you know? So this is actually a pretty decent way on how you can build her. Then we have different champions, like, if I quickly can find my Adolphus, there we go, level 95, I forgot what level he has. Basically, his skills are the following. Grants 10% target's max HP, 2,800% enlightenment, shield. The ultimate deals damage of attack and enlightenment and grants a shield of target's max HP and enlightenment. So you see I have 458 enlightenment on my Adolphus. The more enlightenment and HP on him, the better, okay? And the target's max HP is generally the champion that will get targeted by him, you know, so it's based on their HP usually. And I have even the artifact, the one that gives me enlightenment, the Antinias Tiara, so I'm getting 90 enlightenment from there. And yes, I have a 3-piece set. The extra healing on himself is not a necessity, but I just want to have extra enlightenment and of course get something next to it as well, you know. I might even consider in breaking that and putting more skill haste on him for other content like dungeons and stuff like that, you know. So that's another option. Make a 2-piece and a 2-piece. It's not a necessity to make a 3-piece from this set, but you cannot use 4 of the same one, you know. Moving over to the other sets, guys. So here, let's just go to the stun set. So I have a stun set on my Vortex. Many other champions can be used on a stun set. Vortex is great because of this skill. Covers the entire area. He has a pretty good initial recharge time. So he's going to use this skill in 11 seconds and he will have a very high chance to stun the enemies. In Arena is game-changing. In Wave Control is game-changing. So definitely utilize stun sets on debuffers that have AoEs. You don't want to use it on single targets because that's pointless, okay? So keep that in mind. You do want to have accuracy on them. That's why, again, it's useless to run it on damage dealers that don't require accuracy, and just generally it's useless to run it on them because you're losing damage from those champions. And the final set that we have on, guys, I have it on Reta, but this, again, can be used on many support champions that use their ultimate skill often to give increased attack as well to your team, you know. So try to use it on champions that do require accuracy, preferably. If no, do 2 pieces of these, 2 pieces of a different set if you're just looking for a skill haste. You can do 2 pieces of a rat, you know, you're getting attack and skill haste, 2 pieces of the Brotherhood, attack and skill haste. But if you want to get the increased attack for the rest of your team, you need a 3-piece, and I'm using it on Reta for my Vortex team as an idea. I have 37 skill haste. I have more skill haste than on any other champion. So usually she's using her ultimate skill. Then I have my Tunnel Nun, I have my Average using their ultimate and dealing more damage because I have this extra attack, you know. And this can be used on Vika. You can use it on other champions, maybe even on champions like Lola, you know, if she's not necessarily prioritized only for PvP. For PvE, yeah, for PvP you want to have a lot of skill haste, so double set is actually better. There are a lot of niche builds as well, guys, so it really depends what you have as an idea in your mind to build with the champions, what you're trying to achieve with your team. But hopefully this gave you a better understanding on how to utilize the gear sets, how to prioritize the stats on your champions, and what should be kind of like your main priority for each one of the champions type and where to utilize the sets. That was all for the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Dragonheir content. Appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.